very pleased to be with you today, and I am appreciative of Pastor Dina for letting me join you and for her sharing the pulpit with me. It's totally selfish of me to ask her to do that. This is such a trip down memory lane. Everything about being back in town and in this wonderful church has been absolutely marvelous. She didn't have to do this, and your leadership didn't either, so I'm just grateful to all of you, because I have loved Craig all of my life. Back when Moses was a pup, this was just a wonderful place to be, so I cannot tell you how grateful, any more grateful than I am to be here. So, again, Pastor, I'm so pleased to come.
Well, and I'm glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Will you join me in prayer? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts, dear Lord, be acceptable in our hearts. For you are our strength and our Redeemer, and we pray that in your sight, what I say now and what our people hear, you will bless. In Christ's name. Amen. We've heard this passage from Acts when Ananias was scared to death to go and confront Paul, who was not a kind person. He was the devil of the community. He was mean. He did not want to support any of the ministry of Jesus. As Pastor Dean said, he was not a believer, and he was blind at the time. He was struck dumb, and at that point, he had been extremely cruel to other believers. When Jesus asked Ananias to go convince Paul that he needed to get Paul to change his ways, Ananias basically said, please, anybody but me. That man persecutes people. He is cruel. He is not anybody I would like to confront. So, thank you, but no thank you. And Jesus said to him, go, because I've chosen him to serve me, to make my name known to the Gentiles and kings and the people of Israel. And I myself will show him all that must suffer for my sake. This is a way of Jesus saying, you are going to change things. You are going to do it. Whether you like it or not, you are going to do it. And Ananias is saying, I don't want it. I am not interested. There are too many people here who are making this too hard on me. I don't want to do it. And Jesus says, I don't care. You are going to do it. I don't care what you're facing. I don't care who you think is up against you. I don't care what the issues are. You are going to do it. Now, who are we to fuss against what Jesus decides to tell us to do? It's a direct line. Remember, Jesus is dead and crucified, but the message is clear. It came from the Lord. The message came down. And Jesus said, you are going to do it. The situation is in a mess, and you're the one that's going to change things. I know that many of us have faced those kinds of situations throughout our lives, and we feel as if all of a sudden we're the ones that are going to have to be the ones who are the message givers. Those of you who are parents have had to face that with your children. In a marriage situation, you've had the same issue. Whether it's at work and you're the boss, there you are. Whether you're the employee and there's an awkward situation. We all have had that dynamic, and churches are certainly no other. All of us have very awkward situations throughout life where we get a message. We know in our gut that something is wrong, and someone has got to make the change, because the message has come down, and we're the ones that have got to make a difference. We have got to be the Ananias. It's not comfortable. We don't want to do it. We want to run the other way, but there is no other choice. We are the ones that are called. And Jesus says, you are going to do it. So then we move to the gospel lesson. And here we are with Jesus. In John 21, Jesus says, after this, Jesus appeared once more to the disciples at Lake Tiberias. This is how it happened. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael, the one from Canaan in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples of Jesus were all together. Simon Peter said to the others, I'm going fishing. We've got 7 men. And Peter, again, the ringleader, says, all 7 of us are going to go fish. We'll come with you, they told him. So they went out on a boat, but all that night they did not catch a thing. Now I can remember being a little kid with Dad when the Ralph White Reservoir was new and Dad had built a boat in the cellar of the parsonage. I don't know how we ever got that thing out of there. It weighed a ton, but anyway, he did. And we went out to the reservoir. It was not my idea of a good time, but as the middle of 3 children, being with my father and the only one with him, fine, I'll do that. Dad and I are both fair-skinned. I guess he had some sort of hat on, but he didn't put one on me, so you can imagine what I came home looking like. We had all this time on the reservoir, and I'm pretty sure the only reason he went there was because the phone couldn't ring. But anyway, so we're on the reservoir, and I read this story, and that's all I can think about, is we're in this crazy old boat that my father built that's painted green, and why he chose green, I will never know. We're on the reservoir, and we're fishing. And he thinks there's fish in that place, but there are no fish. I know there are no fish, because he didn't bring any home. All he brought home was that crazy boat and me. So I understand what these disciples are talking about. They're on that boat all night, and they don't catch anything. They should have changed the name of the Sea of Tiberias, which is really the Sea of Galilee, Ralph White Reservoir. There are no fish in it. As the sun was rising, Jesus stood at the water's edge, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Then he asked them, young men, haven't you caught anything? Not a thing, they answered. He said to them, throw your net out on the right side of the boat, meaning not the left side, and you will catch some. So they threw the net out and could not pull it back in because they caught so many fish. So those of you who fish a lot, how is it that there's a lot of fish on one side of the boat and not the other? These are sizable craft in the Sea of Galilee, but why would there be more fish on one side than the other? Of course, it makes no sense, except that Jesus, the miracle worker, is in charge of all of this. The disciples whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. When Peter heard that it was the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he'd taken off his clothes, and jumped into the water. The other disciples came to shore in the boat, pulling a net full of fish. They're not very far off from land, about 100 yards away. When they stepped ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there with fish on it and some bread. Then Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish you've just caught. Simon Peter went aboard and dragged that net full of fish, 153 of them. Who counts their fish? Now we do, if there's 6 or so in the net. 153? What does that mean? Scholars don't really know why 153. But anyway, there's 153 fish in this net. Even though there were so many, still the net did not tear. Jesus said to them, come and eat. None of the disciples dared ask, who are you? Because they knew it was the Lord. So Jesus went over, took the bread, and gave it to them. He did the same with the fish. This then was the 3rd time Jesus appeared to the disciples. after he was raised from death. The significance of the third time is, remember, Peter denied the Lord 3 times. And now Jesus has appeared 3 times. The disciples have struggled several times trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. Ananias has fought constantly trying to figure out what he's going to do as he's been challenged with, you are in charge of changing. And we now face this decision, all of us, with what are we going to do to make a difference in a world when Jesus has been gone for over 2,000 years, but the word remains the same. What are we going to do? Remember when Jesus appeared to these disciples, when he appeared to Ananias, it's questionable how long it was after these books were written. 40 years, say some, 80 years. Those of you who have lived that long know that your mind can get kind of fuzzy. You may remember the details of babysitting for me, but do you remember what you wore? Not probably. Those of you who are 80 years old, you may remember the cars that you drove originally, but do you remember exactly what mileage you got? Some of you remember the price of whatever and how inexpensive life used to be. But I've always thought it curious that we don't remember what our salaries were at the time and how hard it was to buy that 25 cents a gallon gasoline. Because that was expensive gas when you're only making 29 cents an hour or $1 an hour. Remember those days? I can remember when Mother and Dad had some indigent people stop at the parsonage, and Dad gave them a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. And Mother was worried about what she would give we 3 children for school lunches. Dad thought that was the thing that needed to be done, and Mother wasn't sure what she'd feed her kids. We were fed, it worked out. But we remember those times, don't we? There's a part of us that has, what's the word? Exclusive memory? What am I trying to come up with? Partial memories of the good and the bad, the difficult times. But we don't remember exactly. And that's where Jesus is with this. He's saying, I need all of us, to do what's necessary in the times. Because you don't have me anymore. I can't do the work that needs to be done to make the church viable. You need to do. You need to do. A salad luncheon. It was a phenomenal amount of work. But you had a blast. I heard about it. I was with Pastor Jane yesterday. I spent the night at her home. She drove me all over creation, parts of Maybell. I love that. Where the hell is Maybell? That's a marvelous name for their community days. Isn't that marvelous? Dad used to preach in Maybell. And then we went way past Maybell to try to find all these hieroglyphics on peaks that we never found. But anyway, we had great hikes. And the conversation we had about your salad luncheon was terrific. You didn't make the money that you hoped you did, but it was marvelous. So maybe you're not going to be able to do it next year. Who knows? None of us even knows if we're going to be here tomorrow. But you had a marvelous, successful day. You reached out to the community, and the way I know that is someone who is not congregational, who sells stained glass articles at the craft fair in Maybell, Colorado, who most nobody ever heard of, was here and talked about what a great luncheon you had. Another church member, completely different denomination, had a great time. If we argued theology, it would have been tough. I just ended it by saying we're all going to go to the same place. Same God, different routes. And she loved being here. Your outreach was marvelous because you were doing what Jesus said to the people in John. Do the work of the Lord. And you did it. Our prayer today said, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Times have changed. Very few churches are filled to capacity. We're in a different era. It's time for Craig, the First Congregational Church, and the people of faith to celebrate who you are and not to think about living between 1955 and 1965 when my old man was your pastor. None of us wants to live without microwaves, automatic dishwashers, four-wheel drive cars. We don't want to go back to that time. I got my polio shot, my measles vaccination here in Colorado, in Craig. And we don't want to go without those things. We want to live now, in this century, with the benefits of what we brought. So let's live in this day, minister to the people of this time, and find the way that, as the passage says, we can reach out to the people who are in need, and each of us do what needs to be done to those who need us most. My friends, be courageous in your faith. Love the Lord and share who you are, because you're marvelous people who have been blessed by our God. Let us pray. Almighty God, we give you thanks for who you are and what you are, how you have blessed us, and how you have given us this place. Help us to set aside our worries and concerns, the things that are in the past, and to focus now on life with Jesus in the future, just as you asked the disciples, Ananias, and Paul to do. We pray in Christ's name.